I just don't want to play for clicks. I want to be involved with a great leading program that's going to develop players. Him leaving Colorado, a shot across the bow at Dion. I don't think Dion cares.
We saw Logan Diggs move on from LSU to Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin. Don't be shocked if you see John Emery potentially maybe at another school, maybe like a Miss State or even maybe like a Texas A&M.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
Quotes coming out about Embiid. Oh, he's a warrior. You'll never get him off the court. You're just telling me he's an injury. He's one slip and fall away from what's not seeing him anymore in this series.
I would have sat him because there was only 1 day between the two games. It's 2 days between games 2 and games 3, and it's 2 days between games 3 and game 4.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage Late
sort
Night.
of has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All around this past weekend in sports, live right here on the opening day of a new week. It's a Monday morning on the early line on SportsGrid. Welcome to hour number 2. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. 2 more hours up until 11 a.m. Eastern time, live right here on the grid. The opening Saturday in May means one thing above all else: the running of the Kentucky Derby in my old Kentucky home. A historic Kentucky Derby, not only the 150th running for the Roses, but a photo finish and then some, needing new technology to determine a winner at Churchill Downs on Saturday. And ultimately, that winner by a nose is not the correct expression, because it wasn't by a nose. It was even closer than that, the closest finish in Derby history. That winner, Mystic Dan, going off at an 18-1 price to win the 150th Kentucky Derby, barely edging out Sierra Leone, who had the second best price by the time we reached post on Saturday night, and Forever Young. Again, one of the closest finishes in a 150-year history of the Kentucky Derby. Mystic Dan is your winner of the first leg of the Triple Crown.
I actually never made it to the betting window to place a wager down, which quite frankly I would have ended up losing because I would have taken Sierra Leone. And boy, what a tough way that would be to actually lose a race by the nose hair at that point coming down the stretch. But sometimes, just like the pomp and circumstance, just give us some excitement. Down the back stretch they come here, and we certainly had that. We'll see if, now the question's going to be, is Mystic Dan going to show up for the Preakness here, skip the Preakness and go to the Belmont? We always like the interest to start to geek up, because at the Preakness, if you can get 2 out of those 3 legs down before you head into Belmont, that adds that extra excitement for a Triple Crown winner that we can have. So hopefully he does run the Preakness, and quite frankly, hopefully he does run well. We'll see.
Yep, that's always the intrigue for a Triple Crown over the summer months. Will we see the winner of the Kentucky Derby? If not favored to win the Derby, do they go to the Preakness and then into Belmont, where we have excitement, hopefully by the time we reach that third and final leg out on Long Island for a potential Triple Crown. Still an impressive feat in all of sports. I had so many Derby bets on Saturday. Not one, not an exacta, not a trifecta, not a win, place, or show, included Mystic Dan. Dang, you hate to see that with all the investment on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Elsewhere, though, around the world of sports, Taylor Pendrith into the winner's circle of the PGA Tour out in Dallas at the CJ Cup. Byron Nelson. Taylor Pendrith wins for the first time in his PGA Tour career, a big victory in the state of Texas.
Yeah, the AI could have made up that name for a Taylor Pendrith here. Good luck to the kid. I guess he won his first match. Never heard of the guy in my life, but he comes away with a big victory here. Exactly. Now we learned about him. We're telling the people about him that, yes, his son is real, and apparently not an AI name just made up to win a tournament, which was kind of funky, as well as the CJ Cup, Byron Nelson. So glad that's out of the way. We can start to look forward to the next major on the card here, Ben.
The next major on the card later this month, the PGA Championship, where Scotty Scheffler, of course, is a very short favorite at 4-1. But for Taylor Pendrith, with his first career victory, he will play in the second major of the year on the PGA Tour, that being the PGA Championship at Valhalla in Kentucky, I believe. 40-1 for Scotty Scheffler to win this year's Grand Slam. That would be all 4 major championships. The next Grand Slam in the world of tennis, the French Open in Paris. Friso, when is the French Open this year in Paris? A busy summer ahead in Paris. Yeah? End of May it is as well. Joe Friso, our tennis guy. And before we get to the French Open, I believe this weekend in Madrid, DRS, the final Masters 1000 events, the highest you can get outside of a Grand Slam event. Andre Rublev, the winner of the men's Masters in Madrid. Iga Swiatek, the number 1 player in the women's circuit, wins the Madrid Masters on the women's side.
All right, there we go. Tennis update. By the way, when's tennis season over? Feels like we're talking about this a little bit too much right now. They have like a couple more matches to go, hopefully. Come on.
I can pretty much say we are the only show on the SportsGrid network, because of our producer Joe Friso's affinity for tennis, that will detail what happened this weekend at the Madrid Masters. I'm pretty comfortable in saying that. I don't think tennis season really ever ends. Even after the final major of the year, the Grand Slam in New York, that, of course, the U.S. Open in late August, you have major events or Masters events here in the States. I think it's just all year round. And then, of course, you go to Australia in January for the Aussie Open, the first Grand Slam of the tennis calendar. It never ends, DRS. It never does.
Yeah, they should all be in Australia because it's the middle of the night, so we don't have to watch that here in the United States, because I usually have a standing ovation once the U.S. Open is over, because therefore we don't have to hear too much about tennis. Like breakfast at Wimbledon, just clogging up my morning. I'm just trying to get notes done. I see tennis on my TV. Come on. No.
All right, fair enough.
Play them all in Australia,
all right, so
all of them.
Donnie, not a huge tennis guy. Note, Joe Friso, please, for our future tennis conversations. Also in the ring, Canelo Alvarez won a fight. That's cool. To get to the Derby once again, we saw a huge purse, the largest purse ever, more than $3 million for Mystic Dan. Also the highest rated Kentucky Derby since the late 80s. And we got news before the Derby got underway on Saturday evening. It will remain on NBC through 2032. The 150th running of the Kentucky Derby remains on NBC. A historic one for sure for the Derby on Saturday night.
By the way, I like what you did here, where you skipped over Canelo Alvarez fighting a guy named, I guess it was Jaime Munguia or something like that. The reason why I'm glad you skipped it over, because this is what boxing is now down to at this point here. And quite frankly, I'm glad we actually have this topic with a couple minutes to spin on it, because when YouTubers are doing better things in the boxing landscape than actually the boxing community themselves, that's where the issue is. You know what fight I'm looking forward to is when Paul faces off against Tyson. I believe that's in July. That's the next big fight. That should embarrass the professional boxing ranks, because you give a slop like Canelo Alvarez, where it's this guy nobody's ever heard of to fight. Of course he was going to win that fight here. So shout out the YouTubers that are now bigger in the boxing game than the actual regular boxers themselves. We actually needed that, because fights that we care about, the YouTubers want to put on. Fights that we don't care about, that's in the professional ranks here. Embarrassing for the sport of boxing right now, Ben.
All right. I did not know that me barely skipping over Canelo Alvarez would lead to a Donnie right side soliloquy. There we go. Jake Paul and Mike Tyson later this summer. Conor McGregor makes his return to the UFC octagon in late June. Saw a promo that featured Foggy Dew, in my estimation, the best walkout song you can have in the world of sports. To the ice we go. We brought you the details of the two games that we saw yesterday. Game number 1 of the second round of the Eastern Conference playoffs between the Rangers and the Hurricanes. Carolina enters this second round as the Cup favorites, but the New York Rangers, the best team in the NHL regular season, victorious in Game 1, winning 4-3. We saw 2 Game 7s this weekend, though, to round out round number 1 of the Stanley Cup postseason. Boston vanquishes the demons of having a 3-1 series lead and almost coughing it up, knocking off the Maple Leafs 2-1 in overtime in Game 7 on Saturday. The 6th consecutive Game 7 defeat for Toronto.
Yeah, and by the way, that's a shame for Toronto. There's way too much talent on that team to not be advancing routinely on a year-to-year basis. But also been watching a lot more hockey this year in anticipation for the Flyers one of these years getting back into the playoffs. But anytime you have Game 6s, Game 7s, and a lot of intrigue, there's nothing better than to watch those sports. You're knowing that one rush up the ice could end the other team's season. And you saw that in Pastrnak. What an unbelievable goal early in that overtime to put away the Maple Leafs. Tough scene all the way around, but Boston advances here. And what do we do with Toronto? I don't know. Break up that team. A lot of talent, not a lot of results.
The stress that comes from playoff hockey in a Game 7 in OT, that elevates the heart rate, to say the least. We will set the stage for the second round of the NBA playoffs up next. Torrey Taylor, who they actually needed some help in terms of their punting unit. He is going to be great.
But I do firmly believe if Odunze's not on the board, that they probably trade back and gain assets and look to fortify their team across the board. But the fact that we got a bozo pick in number 8 here from the Atlanta Falcons, that's the reason why I believe also they picked out the Bears as the winner.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Giannis not available. So, what is that, a 6-year window? He's been injured in, he's been injured in 4 of the last 5 playoffs, Coach?
And he can't close games because he can't shoot. And he's not healthy. At some point, people need to look at Giannis and say, great player? Don't tell me all the time great.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here because I'll tell you, that's a bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. Like, hey, I admit, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Game 6 on a Friday night in Dallas in the opening round series between the Mavericks and the Clippers. No Kawhi Leonard for LA. He misses 4 of the 6 games. His injury history in the playoffs will be studied for many years to come. And the Mavericks close things out in game number 6 over LA. A huge performance out of Kyrie Irving. Dallas on to round number 2 of the NBA postseason, where they will take on the top team in the Western Conference, the number 1 seed, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Game 1 of round 2 in this second round set is actually tomorrow. The first game of that second round series is after game number 2 of the second round series between Minnesota and Denver. We'll get that all ironed out throughout this second round. But now we set the stage, DRS, for what we expect to be a gauntlet of a second round set in the NBA postseason. Now, the Thunder hold home floor advantage, but are an ever so slight favorite in the outright price. OKC minus 120. But actually, it's the Thunder getting a game and a half in the series spread, a hefty amount of juice you have to pay at minus 194. To get to 6 games is plus 195. To go the distance, second best number at plus 220. How close and tightly contested do you expect this series between OKC and Dallas to be?
I expect it to be a really good one. You take a look at that series betting price, let you know right off the bat here. It's a de facto pick, a minus 121 side here for the Thunder. Home court advantage going up against the Mavericks at minus 102. Here's also what we have to put into play, Ben, in this series, similar to what we see in some other series, particularly like the Minnesota Timberwolves. You're just not trusting them. Don't you remember going back to open up here the playoffs? A plus 114 price was for the T-Wolves to beat the Suns, even though the T-Wolves had home court advantage. It's almost like, what have you done for me lately? Now, granted, the Minnesota Timberwolves now have beaten the Denver Nuggets in game number 1 in the second round, and now they're starting to get their respect. When are we going to get that for OKC? Because similar to what we saw from out of the Minnesota Timberwolves, which is why I'm bringing up both of these teams, young teams, not necessarily, I shouldn't say young teams, but young in their playoff awareness, I should say, where they can win basketball games and you start to trust them. It took a sweep in that first round for Minnesota to wake up and say, okay, maybe they're a good basketball team. And now they beat the Denver Nuggets. Well, you take a look at OKC in round number 1. They were flawless in their round as well, but still not getting a lot of respect. We have to remind ourselves, this isn't OKC is like a 5th or 6th seed taking on the Dallas Mavericks, who are the home team. No, OKC is the number 1 seed at home with home court advantage. So before this series even begins, I like the Mavericks. I like to root for them. They're a fun team. Prop bets, a lot of fun to bet with their 2 superstars here. But having said that, I do think there is a lot of disrespect towards Oklahoma City as only a minus 120 price as being the number 1 overall seed and easily dispatching their round 1 opponent here. Let's see what happens in round number 2. But starting off here, I just think it's disrespectful at a minus 120 price to the top overall seed in the West here.
Completely agree. And listen, the Mavericks were not flawless in their opening round series, even against a shorthanded Clippers team. Game number 4, Dallas on its home floor, booked as a 7.5-8-point favorite because LA did not have Kawhi Leonard, down by 30-plus in the opening half, only for the Clippers to hold on at the end to win that 4th game. Sure, it's a 1-game sample size. All to say, Dallas had its issues in the opening round series against a shorthanded Clippers team outside of game number 1, where OKC handled New Orleans in the second half, but it was tight back and forth. Oklahoma City, by far the better team, winning by 30-plus in game 2, 20-plus in game number 3, and really has been sitting on the sidelines now for over a week, rested and ready. And Donnie, the conversation around Oklahoma City was, could OKC handle these tests? All right, first true playoff game in that opening game against New Orleans with this young core. They were tested. They survived a late game tying or even winning 3-point attempt from C.J. McCollum. All right, look good in game 2, but could they go on the road? Yeah, they answered the test against the New Orleans Pelicans, closing things out quickly and promptly in a 4-game sweep. I think OKC is the right side here in this second round series, having home floor advantage, not just minus 120 outright to win the series. Oklahoma City only a 3.5-point favorite for game number 1 tomorrow night against Dallas. And oh, by the way, 3 of the 4 games for the Thunder against the Pelicans did stay under. No total was as high as 217. I lean the under in game number 1 against the Mavs.
Yeah, two teams feeling themselves out. I do understand that as well. But also, we're taking a look at some of the, I don't want to say outside things that could impact this series, but as you talked about in round number one, where you saw the Mavericks get a victory over the Clippers, well, that would have been an interesting series if 100% Kawhi Leonard was in there. I'm not saying Dallas still wouldn't have won that series, but you would have got a little bit of a difference. Now, you can also argue the same thing. Hey, Donnie, did you see OKC, who they played round number one, would have been different if Zion played? I understand that. There's always going to be that. But moving forward here, you got a pretty healthy OKC team. The one thing you're still worried about is Luka Doncic. He did have a little bit of knee issues in round number one. Did it affect him that much with his points, rebounds, and assists? Not really, but if that's something that flares up in the series, that could be a major advantage for Oklahoma City. But I look at the same way a lot of people do. Still, Oklahoma City must have to prove their victories, and maybe round one wasn't good enough. Let's see in game number one. And also, as you pointed out, the spread for game number one, still a little bit disrespectful once again for OKC. I expect them to win game number one on their home court here. And if they do win, it's going to be my margin of 3.5 points. So I like OKC in the series and game number one here.
Yeah, I would agree. OKC, by the way, covering in their final 3 games in the opening round series against New Orleans. These two teams did face off 4 times in the regular season. OKC winning 3 of 4, including what has now been a 9-game win streak for the Thunder. Their final 5 games of the regular season to earn the number 1 overall seed in the Western Conference. And now the 4 games, of course, to start off the playoffs. That included the regular season finale, where Dallas didn't play anybody. OKC was a 19.5-point favorite against the Mavericks. They won by nearly 50, easily covering that number. 3 of the 4 games in the regular season, not the regular season finale, did go over, maybe influencing that 2-17. Of course, it will be a superstar showdown. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to and expected to score 30 points each and every night. Kyrie Irving did score 30 in game number 6 against the LA Clippers. So we're already into game number 2 of the second round between the T-Wolves and the Nuggets tonight. Round number 2, game number 1 of the other Western Conference semifinals tomorrow night in Oklahoma City between the Thunder and the Mavericks. Now we go to Boston, the Celtics and the Cavaliers up next. Torrey Taylor, who they actually needed some help in terms of their punting unit. He is going to be great.
But I do firmly believe if Odunze is not on the board, that they probably trade back and gain assets and look to fortify their team across the board. But the fact that we got a bozo pick in number 8 here from the Atlanta Falcons, that's the reason why I believe also it's a great pick to have the Bears as the winner.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Giannis not available. So, what is that, a 6-year window? He's been injured in, he's been injured in 4 of the last 5 playoffs, Coach?
And he can't close games because he can't shoot. And he's not healthy. At some point, people need to look at Giannis and say, great player? Don't tell me all the time great.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here because I'll tell you, that's a bad, bad, bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. Like, hey, I admit, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Earlier in our opening hour of this opening day of a new week, on a Monday following the weekend that was in the NBA playoffs, we painted a path for the Boston Celtics that in the Eastern Conference, the best team in the NBA all year long really has a very favorable way to reach the NBA Finals once again. Boston is a minus 260 favorite to win the Eastern Conference title here entering round number 2. They have been an odds-on minus money favorite all postseason long in the association because not only how strong they have been all year, closing out Miami in 5 games, but because of how everything else in the Eastern Conference has laid out. The 2 best teams outside of Boston in the preseason from an Eastern Conference title price, Milwaukee and Philly, now have exited. Miami always has heat culture in the Eastern Conference playoffs, reaching the finals 3 of the past 4 years. They were bounced by Boston. That means the Knicks, the Pacers, and the Cavaliers, the teams left standing in the East, as well as the C's. And one of the reasons it's minus 260 for Boston when the Eastern Conference crown is because they are a minus 1,600 favorite to win their second round set against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Will it be as easy, DRS, as the odds makers expect it to be?
I do. I think it's a 5-game series here. You take a look at that plus 165 price here to end it in 5 games. I think that gentleman's sweep, which, again, it's very hard to sweep a team. We understand that. And if there's any team you probably should have swept, it would have been the Miami Heat in round number 1. But even though the Heat didn't get swept, they needed that historic performance in game number 2 just to get a single victory. Now, do you think the Cleveland Cavaliers need historic performances to beat the Celtics? I don't think so, but I do think they get one of those games. And also, Jaren Allen, who missed the final 3 games of that series up against the Orlando Magic, we'll see for that rib injury. We'll see if he can play because that's another guy they're going to need on the court. But when you take a look at that previous series, it looked like it was tough to score in the half court. Celtics aren't going to have any problem scoring in the half court. It's what they do. They're superstars all the way across, even if Kristaps Porzingis does not play in this one. Minus 1,600, am I looking forward to pay that? No. But I do think I'd rather pay the plus 165 saying it ends in a gentleman's sweep.
Absolutely so. There's 2 prices in the series correct score market. That means the team to win and in how many games, pairing up the 2 that are less than plus 450. The favored number, the shortest number, is Boston in 5 at plus 175. Second best price is Boston in the series sweep in only 4 games at plus 190. It is heavily skewed to the Celtics, and rightfully so. Total for game number 1 tomorrow night inside TD Garden, 209. Cleveland really struggled to score, and especially on the road in Orlando. Never 100 points in their 3 defeats against the Magic. They got to 96. That was their highest amount in game number 6. They did not break 90 in the first 2 games against Orlando in Orlando. I would lean under 209 for tomorrow night, or maybe just a Cavaliers team total under, because Boston is really sound defensively, and they know Donovan Mitchell is what is keeping Cleveland alive at this point. 89 combined points for Spida in the final 2 games of this series. Do I think it's a sweep? No, I think Cleveland's going to win 1. Do I think it's the gentleman's sweep, as Donnie alluded to? Yeah, probably so. And it's a story for Boston in this set, which will be the story for the Celtics the entirety of the NBA playoffs through the Eastern Conference run and into a potential NBA Finals. The Celtics are going to have home floor advantage the entire way. They're an 11-point home favorite. 11-point home favorite in game number 1. They are, Donnie, in 44 games this year at home, 39-5 straight up. 24-18-2 against the spread, booked as a favorite in all 44 in Beantown.
And by the way, I thought I saw a crazy statistic yesterday once the Cavaliers had closed out their series against the Magic, was something like they hadn't won a playoff series without LeBron James since like 1993 or something like that, which is so wild to even think about. But also, you do have that deep breath, that exhale, like, okay, we won our first round, now we get Boston, which really folds right into Boston, where they should probably hammer them in game number 1 because the Cavaliers might just be happy to be there. But also, if there is a correlation, as you pointed out, why even bet any of the Cavaliers on, just say, the money line and or with the point spread. Just take Donovan Mitchell because he can have a monster game and score 50 points like he did against the Magic and still lose that ball game. That's what they're going to need. Just to be competitive, he's got to go just crazy every single night. We'll see if it happens.
27.5 is the points prop for Spida tomorrow. We'll preview game number 1 by the time we reach tomorrow. But first, it's the scouting report with our coach, JY, James Young, as we look back on the weekend and what's ahead with a doubleheader on this Monday. Up next. Torrey Taylor, who they actually needed some help in terms of their punting unit. He is going to be great.
But I do firmly believe if Odunze is not on the board, that they probably trade back and gain assets and look to fortify their team across the board. But the fact that we got a bozo pick in number 8 here from the Atlanta Falcons, that's the reason why I believe also it's a great pick to have the Bears as the winner.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Giannis not available. So, what is that, a 6-year window? He's been injured in, he's been injured in 4 of the last 5 playoffs, Coach?
And he can't close games because he can't shoot. And he's not healthy. At some point, people need to look at Giannis and say, great player? Don't tell me all the time great.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here because I'll tell you, that's a bad, bad, bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. Like, hey, I admit, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
A full scouting report on this Monday morning, live right here on the early line on SportsGrid with our coach. It is JY, James Young. I am Ben Stevens. Donnie is on the right side. JY, we thank you for joining us here on this Monday morning. We look back on Game 7 yesterday afternoon in Cleveland. Now that everybody is on to the second round of the NBA postseason, what it means, and of course we preview the doubleheader tonight. First game inside Madison Square Garden between the Knicks and the Pacers, and already game number 2 between the Nugs and the T-Wolves in Denver. So much to get to in this final half hour, JY, of this second hour.
Good to be on with you, Ben and Donnie. Obviously, big games in the NBA. I'll tell you what, that arena in Cleveland was mighty quiet when it was 48-31 in the second quarter. You know, this whole way of how they played this to get the 4 seed just to get out of the first round almost backfired. Thank God for Spider Mitchell.
Thank God for Spider. 24 of his 39 points in that second half. Cleveland down by as many as 18 in the opening half. They rally in the third quarter and beyond. 106-94, the victory for the Cavaliers in this 7-game set, JY. Everybody, all 7 games, the home team was victorious. How did Cleveland rally in the second to get to the second round where Boston awaits?
Honestly, it was Spider. Spider just didn't want to go home. And this was such a critical series, Ben, because of the way that they aligned and lined themselves up to get the 4 seed. just to play out of the first round, to be honest with you, because everybody knew what kind of trouble awaited with J.B. Bickerstaff if they did not win. But to me, it was just a great performance by Spider Mitchell, and didn't shoot the ball well from three. 2 of 8 from three-point line, getting to the foul line, uber aggressive, 15-17, forcing referees to make calls. But to me, I think a part that's not really talked about as much is, to me, the play of Karis LeVert. Karis LeVert, who had combined to score a grand total of 9 points in the previous 3 games, scored 15 points, gave him some boosts off the bench. Karis LeVert, at times, guys, is a bucket getter. Him getting buckets for them helped be that second scorer. But I'll tell you what, they're going into a buzzsaw. And I heard Donnie last segment. This is going to be a rough spot for Cleveland game 1, because I think they're going to be so happy to be there that I think Boston is going to absolutely roll them in game 1.
Conference semis here on deck. We got 4 great series. You take a look at the Eastern Conference. You have the Celtics and the Cavaliers, the 1 seed versus the 4. You take a look at the Pacers, the 6 seed going up against the 2 seed Knicks. And then over in the Western Conference, the Thunder Mavericks. That's a 1 and 5 matchup. And then the Timberwolves and the Nuggets here. From looking at these 4 series here, Coach, are we surprised, mildly surprised of how we got here? Is this about what you expected?
No, I think this is what, listen, I think some of the ways that we've got here is surprising. I don't think any of us thought, listen, Phoenix was the favorite to beat Minnesota. I think we're surprised that Minnesota dispatched them with a sweep. I think that is surprising. I'm not surprised that the Pacers won. I'm not surprised that the Knicks won. I figured Cleveland, Orlando was going to go 7 games. And the Clippers series was just a bad matchup for them, going against 2 dominating guards in Luke and Kyrie. So I'm not shocked that this is where we're at with the final 8 in the NBA. Yeah. Maybe just how we got there, Donnie, especially with that Minnesota series with Phoenix.
Yeah, JY, I think it's a great point. We talked about it earlier in the opening hour. Surprised? Probably not, but it is interesting to see this all play out the way that maybe we expected based on results, but not the odds makers. Because before the year got underway, there was the big 4. 4 teams, 2 from the Eastern Conference, 2 from the Western Conference, the only 4 teams in the association that had a 3-digit price to win the Larry O'Brien Trophy as an NBA champion. In the Eastern Conference, the Celtics and the Bucks. Milwaukee already eliminated after 1 round. In the Western Conference, Denver and Phoenix, the Suns bounced in round number 1 as well. So now we go to the NBA championship odds entering round number 2. Boston nearly even money, plus 105. We'll compare the Nuggets' price to win an NBA title to their price to win the Western Conference in just a moment. But JY, if you had to make a wager, what do you think is the best bet from the NBA title odds entering this second round?
Well, to me, I'm not going to take the value chalk play of Boston. To me, I really look at Denver and Minnesota. And guys, I think the winner of this could actually win the NBA championship. And I think what we got, when we got to Minnesota, folks, to me, and it was the same thing with OKC. It was, well, are they mature enough? Can they handle the moment? Is this too big for them? Well, talent wins overall, right? And when you have a guy right now, and Anthony Edwards, and let's be honest, I'm a Knicks fan. There's talk of Jalen Brunson being the best player, but it ain't Jalen Brunson. The best player in the playoffs right now is Anthony Edwards. And what this guy is doing is so remarkable. His efficiency, his drive, his determination, like this, and he brings it, guys, on both ends of the floor. And that's why I thought it's been the part of Edwards' game in the last year that's, to me, been the biggest, is to jump defensively, right? His willingness to get in and grind. I am so amazed at watching this guy. And here's the thing, folks. If Minnesota was in like New York or Philly or LA or Chicago, we were talking about Anthony Edwards as being the best player possibly in the world. Now he isn't, but to me, what they've done has been spectacular, and it's more than just him. It's the other guys have kind of fallen into their roles, and I really like their bench.
Eastern Conference action here to win it. There's the haves, coach, and the have-nots here. The haves, the Boston Celtics at a minus 260 price. The haves, the New York Knicks at a plus 310 price. They're the top two seeds here. And then you take a look at the Pacers at a 12-1 price, and then the Cleveland Cavaliers at a 21-1 price. If you're taking a look here at those four teams, is it just so simple to say, yes, it's going to be the Celtics and the Knicks playing in the Eastern Conference Finals? Or could we get a shape-up here between the Pacers and the Cavaliers, at least fighting and making those series a little bit tougher?
As the Knicks fan, I'm going to say yes. As an unbiased basketball analyst, this is going to be a tricky series for New York. Because if I'm Indiana, guys, I'm making this a track meet. New York can only go 7 deep. No Bogdanovich, no Randall. Alec Burks is banging. Now they're talking about, are you going to play Alec Burks? If I'm Rick Carlisle, I do what I do. I try to make this game a track meet. Now, New York will run with Indiana. They're more opportunistic in regards to their running. But if you're looking at DiVincenzo and Hart and Brunson playing 43, 44, 45 minutes game, guys, they may not make it to the finish line if this series goes 6-7 games. So to me, I think Indiana is being a little bit disrespected by the book. I think they can give the Knicks a series if they can get the game up tempo. Tibbs is going to have to really slow this series down.
And if that is the case, the value on Indiana entering this second round is right there right now, or you might see a few more if the New York Knicks win game number 1 tonight, as the odds makers expect. We'll preview game 1 inside the Mecca in just a moment. But Jay, why to the Western Conference title odds now? Denver has a shorter price by more than $1 in front of Minnesota to win the NBA championship. And yet, after stealing game 1 on the road at altitude on Saturday, the Timberwolves are the favorites to win the West. Make it make sense if you can.
Basically, what they're trying to tell you is if they get into the NBA Finals, the moment may be too big for Minnesota, but bigger chances if it's Denver gets to the Finals. Nikola Jokic as a center provides such a big problem for Boston that they think it's just a better matchup. We talked about all the time, Ben. Styles make fights, and they figure having Nikola Jokic at the center position could pose a lot of problems for Boston, especially if we don't know when Porzingis is going to be back, although we think it's going to be next round. But I'll tell you this series, and I know we'll talk about it more after the break, this series between Minnesota and Denver is so fascinating. This is going to be an absolute roller coaster. And I'm not talking about the series. I'm talking about in the game, the adjustments by the coaches. This is going to be great, probably going 7 games.
That's the nightcap tonight in the Mile High City, a nightcap of a doubleheader that begins at the world's most famous arena. It's game 1 between the Knicks and the Pacers. A preview next. Torrey Taylor, who they actually needed some help in terms of their punting unit. He is going to be great.
But I do firmly believe if Odunze is not on the board, that they probably trade back and gain assets and look to fortify their team across the board. But the fact that we got a bozo pick in number 8 here from the Atlanta Falcons, that's the reason why I believe also they picked to have the Bears as the winner.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Giannis not available. So, what is that, a 6-year window? He's been injured in, he's been injured in 4 of the last 5 playoffs, Coach?
And he can't close games because he can't shoot. And he's not healthy. At some point, people need to look at Giannis and say, great player? Don't tell me all the time great.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here because I'll tell you, that's a bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. Like, hey, I admit, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Live right here on this Monday on the early line, a Monday that starts off a new week with a doubleheader of NBA playoff action. It is game number 1 of round number 2 of an Eastern Conference playoff series between the New York Knicks and the Indiana Pacers. Tonight, it's live at Madison Square Garden, where the Knicks enter as a 6-point favorite. JY back for a second consecutive segment before we dive into the breakdown for game number 1. We look at this series overall. JY, you said the odds makers expect it to be an easy one potentially for the Knickerbockers, but maybe you're not so sure. Why can Indiana and how do the Pacers give the Knicks a test here in this series?
They just make it a track meet. And to me, you're looking at a New York team that Tibbs plays every game like it's game 7, the entire season. So this is where you start to get concerned as you get deeper into the playoffs. These guys are playing big minutes. And to me, I think that's the key here is I think you have to look at this game and look at a way that how Rick Carlisle can get in transition with Halliburton, with Nembhard. You know, obviously, listen, I'm not going to expect a guy like TJ McConnell to drop 20 points like he did against game 6. I'm not expecting Obi to drop 20 points. But I do expect him to get up and down the floor and test Tibbs to make Tibbs ready, folks, to go 8 and maybe even 9 deep. So now we're talking about Precious Achiuwa possibly getting minutes. Now we're talking about maybe bringing Alec Burks and giving him time. God, he's been awful since he's been back with the Knicks. So that is why I think it gets up and down a little bit. I think this is a 6-game series. Can New York win it in 5? Yes. Do I think so? No, because I think we'll probably be – I wouldn't be shocked if we're 2-2 heading back to MSG in a game number 5. The other thing that benefits Indiana, guys, is the fact that in regards to the games, the first 4 games, I'm not mistaken, there's only 1 day off in between each game. So there's not a lot of rest for a team like New York to get their legs back. That's why I think that's another reason why I think it goes 6 games with the Knicks.
Oh. Coach, when you take a look at this series and how it winds up, because we talked about the Cleveland Cavaliers, right? Okay, won that series. Been a while since we've done that. We're happy to be here. Let's see what happens against Boston. You're not going to get that out of these 2 teams in this. The reason I say that is I think we all expected Indiana, knowing that Giannis Antetokounmpo was banged up in the level of basketball that Milwaukee was playing down the stretch. They had a legitimate chance to win, and they believed they should be able to win that series and did so in 6. When you take a look at the Knicks and the Sixers, even though they won in 6 games, it just feels like it was an absolute slugfest between the Sixers and the Knicks every single game. Now, moving forward, you are home court advantage. The Garden is going to be rocking. Talk to me about the level of competitiveness that we're looking at both of these teams heading in, where we expected them to win their series, yes, but how they got here, a little bit different for me.
Yeah, it was because let's be honest, Indiana did it against a team. Like, let's be honest. I know Giannis was hurt. I know Dame was compromised. They also had Doc Rivers coaching the team. So let's just make sure we bring Doc back into the mix a little bit of what his deficiencies are, particularly when it comes to adjusting. But you're right. And I think it's the other reason why you get concerned about the Knicks and it not being a short series is sometimes it's like, when you have a heavyweight fight and it's a 15-round slugfest and a guy wins barely, the next fight, they may not have as much left in the tank. And I think Philadelphia may have taken a lot out of New York. Particularly, we talked about the minutes and every game coming down to the wire. Now, what that does benefit a team like New York is, end of game, they may be able to make the plays to get the wins because they've been in it pretty much every game like that. So to me, it's such an intriguing series and contrasting of styles of these two. The one thing you have to look for is this, particularly with New York. Can they continue to dominate the boards? This is what they've done all year. They play I used to call it play volleyball. They throw the ball at the rim and they run and go get it. And I think that's the way New York's got to do it. If they're able to dominate the boards, guys, that may mean that less runouts for Indiana, because now they have to send more guys to block out. They're really good guys at rebound, outlet, up the floor in 3-4 seconds. So if you're dominating the boards offensively like New York will, it takes away running opportunities for Indiana. Watch the rebounding game closely. New York dominates it, they can dominate the series. If not, things get very hairy.
A key for this second round series, a key for game number 1 tonight inside Madison Square Garden. A little bit of movement on the spread since we started this segment. New York was a 6-point favorite, now just 5 and a hook in favor of the Knicks for the opening game of this set tonight inside MSG. Total at 217 and a half. JY, it's kind of a two-part question, but really it's whoever comes out on top. What is the key for them tonight? If Indiana wins, what is the reason why? If the Knicks hold serve on their own home floor, how did New York get it done?
It's the boards. It's the boards. And you got to think about, if you're Indiana, what are you going to do with Brunson? Like, how are you going to defend this guy? Are you going to let him just go off? Or are you going to send a double team and try to get at him? On the flip side, watch particularly the matchup of Miles Turner. Miles Turner and Tyrese Halliburton run a really good pick and roll / pick and pop. It hurt New York during the season because New York likes to play that drop coverage with Hartenstein particularly. Mitchell Robinson will come out and switch out a little bit more, but that pick and pop game will be dangerous. More than anything with the spread, I like the over because I think Rick Carlisle is going to try and push the pace in game 1 to test the limits of the Knicks and see if we can get them in a running match. 5 out of the last 6 games, guys, have gone over this number, 217.5. I can see this game being, honestly, 225, 230. Some of these games were really high scoring. I think this is going to be a running game. Carlisle tries to set the tone early by making this a track meet.
So when you look at the superstars for tonight in the Garden as well, Tyrese Halliburton hasn't really been scoring at the clip maybe we saw in the opening half of this year. 17.5 is the points prop. JY, quickly here. Do the New York Knicks, or maybe better yet, can the New York Knicks win game number 1 if Jalen Brunson stays under 33.5?
Yes, because I think if I'm Indiana, I'm going to get the ball out of his hands. I would be looking at Brunson's assist prop, to be honest with you, see if he gets other people going. To me, on the flip side, Halliburton, remember, folks, he wanted to get drafted by the Knicks when they took Obi Toppin. I'm looking at 17.5 points. I think that's light. I think he gets to 20 tonight.
Obi Toppin makes his return to the Garden tonight, now in a Pacers uniform as well. The nightcap in game number 2 in Denver. Up next. Torrey Taylor, who they actually needed some help in terms of their punting unit. He is going to be great.
But I do firmly believe if Odunze is not on the board, that they probably trade back and gain assets and look to fortify their team across the board. But the fact that we got a bozo pick in number 8 here from the Atlanta Falcons, that's the reason why I believe also it's a great pick to have the Bears as the winner.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Giannis not available. So, what is that, a 6-year window? He's been injured in, he's been injured in 4 of the last 5 playoffs, Coach?
And he can't close games because he can't shoot. And he's not healthy. At some point, people need to look at Giannis and say, great player? Don't tell me all the time great.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here because I'll tell you, that's a bad, bad, bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. Like, hey, I admit, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The upsetting game number one out in Denver on Saturday night. The Timberwolves, nothing to be trifled with at this point. 5 games in playoff basketball for Minnesota, 5 victories. They steal game number one at altitude, 106-99, winning outright as a 4.5-point underdog. How do the reigning champs respond? That's what we'll find out tonight in Denver. JY joins us for a 3rd consecutive segment to break down game number 2 tonight in the Mile High City between the Nuggets and the Timberwolves. The Nugs, JY, a 5.5-point home favorite for game number 2. Total as of this morning, 205 and a hook, already up by 2 points on this Monday, 207.5. And we can just follow the odds as the odds makers expect that resolve out of the Nuggets. They were a 4.5-point favorite for game number 1. They lost outright. They're now a 5.5-point favorite for game number 2. Will the Nuggets bounce back in this second game of the second round against Minnesota?
Yes, and honestly, Ben, I probably just had it backwards. I thought that Denver was going to win and cover game 1 and possibly lose outright game 2 because I thought this was going to go 1-1 back to Minnesota. So I think I got it backwards. I'm going to lay the points with Denver minus 5.5. Listen, they cannot get down, 18-4, I think it was, in game number 1. They have to get off to a better start. And obviously, Jamal Murray has to be better in the first half. He got going in the second half a little bit. So I do like a better performance out of Denver tonight. I think they covered the spread. But one thing off the bat, folks, they didn't move this. And I'm kind of curious. Nikola Jokic rebounding prop, folks, is at 12.5. I get it. 10 out of the last 15 games, he's gone over this number. But 10 out of the last 13 versus Minnesota, he hasn't gotten to this number. So to me, I think this is intriguing because you're looking at 2 things. One, the play of Rudy Gobert, right? He's got to keep him off the boards, right? The other thing is this. When Naz Reid comes into the game, Naz Reid's a stretch 5. He brings Joker outside, and they have to contest it because, let's be honest, as great as Anthony Edwards was, Naz Reid's performance in the fourth quarter really put that game to another level. So to me, I'm looking squarely at, and I don't do this a lot, guys, Nikola Jokic under 12.5 rebounds tonight.
Yeah, it makes some sense here. By the way, the shockwaves that'll be sent around the NBA if we do see the Timberwolves go into Denver and take a 2-0 series lead would be crazy to watch. But having said that, Coach, let's just play it out as if that does happen. Are we buying back on Denver because that price is going to be so juicy? Or is it, no. You don't come back here. You lose 2 games on your home court and then go back on the road. You're probably best case scenario heading back to Denver down 3-1. Is there a chance if the Nuggets lose tonight that either A, you would bet the Nuggets to win the series, or is it just too far gone where the Timberwolves are just playing on another planet right now?
This is such a must-win for Denver that to me, Donnie, they can't go down 0-2 and then head to Minnesota.
Yeah.
Because that young team will have so much confidence. This won't be like when they won the playing game and that knucklehead Pat Beverly started waving his jersey like he was Petey Pablo in a rap video in the 90s. Me and Donnie know about Petey Pablo. I don't know if Ben knows about Petey Pablo so much. We'll talk about that another time.
North
Carolina.
Freak League. Ever heard of it? Come on now.
Look at, see, that's why Ben's my guy. That's why he's my guy. But when you think about it, I don't think they come back from this if it's down 0-2. This is such a critical point. So I'll even say this, folks. If Denver gets down again, and you can get a money line and say minus 130, minus 140 during the game, I would jump in on it because if I'm Mike Malone, I am throwing everything out there. This is not Darvin Ham where I'm going to be saving my adjustments for game 6 of a 5-game series. I'm going to turn around and I'm going to throw all my cards out there now because I need this to be 1-1. If it gets to like minus 130, 120, jump on Denver. I think they find a way to win tonight.
For sure. It's indicated in the odds. It's a 5.5-point spread. Denver lost game number 1 as a 4.5-point favorite. They are a greater favorite in game number 2 because of how crucial this game is for the Nuggets in their title defense and to stay alive in this series. If they go back to the Twin Cities in an 0-2 hole, good luck to Denver. But JY, quickly here in the final minute of this segment, how long do you expect this series to go if the odds are true and the Nuggets do tie it up at 1 game all tonight?
I think this is going 7. I think we're going to be tied 2-2, best out of 3, heading back to Denver for a game 5. I think Minnesota's defense will keep them in it, and Anthony Edwards in a close game can close it out. This, guys, is going 7 games.
The Ant-Man, 43 points in game number 1, the future face of the NBA. JY hit a fadeaway as we get to the break, as that great breakdown of game number 2 tonight in Denver comes to a close. We hear from the people. Start hour 3 next.